Morning, everyone.
Good
morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishnah Beitza, Perek Beis, Chapter 2, Mishnah Yud, Mishnah 10. Again, this is not a Mishnah that relates anything about Yontif, but again, similar to what we had before, with some of the different opinions and the different sages that were mentioned previously. Okay, Mishnah Yud, Agala Shal Katan, a child's wagon. That means a toy wagon. You know those little red wagons that, Agala Shal Katan, the wagon of a child. Tamei a medris. It can become tamei as a medris. We'll explain what that means soon. V'nitla b'Shabbos, v'nitelas b'Shabbos. It can be moved on Shabbos. V'nigreres ela al gabe kelim. It can only be dragged on top of clothing, meaning it cannot be dragged on the dirt on the ground directly. So let's go through each one. Tamei medris. First thing we're saying is that the katan, this child's wagon, can become tamei, can become impure, ritually impure as a medris. So what does that mean? So I'm going to read to you from the bottom what medris means. The law of medris, which literally means being stepped on, states that when certain tamei people, including a zav, zava, anida, a zav is a man who has a certain kind of emission that makes him impure. A zava, a nida, means a woman who has her period. A zava means that she has bleeding beyond her regular period, the regular time for having a period. So they are tamei. Now, as we mentioned previously, the original source of impurity is called the avatuma. It's called the father. That's the starting point. And typically, what happens after that is anything that it comes into contact with and makes impure, it kind of goes down a level. So we say like this. The first thing is that if you have a zav, zava, or nida, if they put their weight on an object, it becomes tamei. That's what this medris means, stepping on it, putting your weight on it. But what happens by a medris is that a medris has the same level of impurity as its source. That means the zav is a rishon, and when the zav puts his weight on a medris, the medris becomes an avatuma also. It is the same level as the zav. Okay? It becomes tamei with the same level of tuma as the person himself, namely avatuma. Usually, when one item transmits tuma to another, the tuma of the second item is weaker than the tuma of the first. In the case of medris, however, the object that receives tuma becomes tamei to the same degree as the source of the tuma. Okay? Now, so anything that you're gonna put your weight on is called a medris. So a child can become a zav. This kind of emission we're talking about, which is not semen, this kind of emission that comes out but makes something a zav, can happen to a child. The child can become a zav. The child is on the wagon. The wagon supports the child's weight, and that's what it's made for, right? We're not talking about something that you're putting if you have something that you typically don't put your weight on, and the zav puts his weight on, it doesn't become a medris. It has to be something that you typically put your weight on. So here we say the wagon is meant to support the child, and therefore, if the child is a zav, the child's going to make this wagon into a medris. That's number one. Number two, when you tell us b'Shabbos, it can be moved on Shabbos, meaning it's not muktzah. It's a kli. It's a utensil. It's something that's usable, and therefore it's not muktzah. Now, the third halacha, it can only be dragged on top of clothing, which means whatever it may be, there's something under the wagon. There's something that covers the ground. Meaning that wagon has to be going on top of something that covers the ground. Why is that? Because otherwise, it will make a groove in the earth, which is prohibited under the malacha of plowing. It's going to make a groove in the earth. It's going to be, so to speak, digging up the ground. That falls under the malacha of chayrish, plowing. And therefore, if you're going to go ahead and you're going to drag the wagon on the ground, it's going to make a groove in the earth. That would be considered chayrish, plowing.
So it's paved?
Paved would be fine, but we're talking about where they didn't have paved roads. But if there was clothing or cloth, whatever it was under, that would prevent it from making the grooves. Now, when the child or whoever's dragging the child in the wagon, right? when they're dragging the child, do they intend to make the grooves in the ground?
No.
No, they don't. So apparently, the opinion of this part of the Mishnah holds what we mentioned previously. He holds davar she'eino miskaven. When you do a malacha and it happens unintentionally, you're doing one thing and it comes out from that action that you're doing a malacha, something that would be considered prohibited on Shabbos. That's called davar she'eino miskaven. Something done unintentionally, it's still considered a malacha. It's still considered you've transgressed, you've done a prohibited act on Shabbos, and therefore you can't do it. So that's the time. Now the thing is like this, as we mentioned before, this whole idea of davar she'eino miskaven, a malacha of Shabbos that is done without intent. But I mean, without intent doesn't mean like you forgot it was Shabbos, you know it wasn't you forgot it was Shabbos. It's talking about where you're doing one act and it comes out of that another. You're accomplishing something else with that act which you didn't intend to. So we that is actually machlekes Tanoim, Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda, and this and Reb Shimon says davar she'eino miskaven, the malacha done without unintentionally, you're not is not a problem. It doesn't matter if that's what happens. And Reb Yehuda says it does matter, and therefore this Tana who says you cannot drag the wagon on the ground is of the opinion that davar she'eino miskaven, the unintended act, the unintended performance, is considered a desecration of Shabbos, and therefore you can't do it. Now, as we mentioned previously, even according to Reb Shimon, if what you are doing is a psik reisha, that means it's inevitable that when you do this act, that the other thing is going to come from it. Then even Reb Shimon holds that's forbidden. Dragging the wagon on the ground is not inevitable. It's going to make the groove. Depends. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. It depends on the ground. Sometimes, you don't know what the situation with the ground is. That's whether they'll make the groove or not. So according to Reb Shimon, since it's unintended, it's not inevitable, it would be okay. The fact that our Mishnah says it's not okay means that this part of the Mishnah holds like Reb Yehuda, that says the unintended malacha that comes out is prohibited. Now, Reb Yehuda says, which means that this is really another opinion in what Reb Yehuda held. Kol hakelim eni gorim chutz min hagala. Okay, all heavy utensils, chairs, tables, cannot be dragged on the ground except for a wagon. This child's wagon, you could. Why? It's because it pushes down the ground. Meaning, there's two things. You can dig up the ground, right? Or you could push it down. When the wagon is going on the ground, it's pushing down the ground. It's not digging it up, it's pushing it down. It's making a groove, but it's not doing it by digging up, by uprooting the ground. The ground is still in its place. It's got pushed down. Therefore, this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda says that if you're talking about something heavy and it when you drag it, it picks up the dirt. It picks up the dirt from its place. It uproots the dirt. That's a problem. That's going to be a problem of chayrish. That's the kind of digging that we say is the malacha of chayrish or plowing. But if the groove is made because you push the ground down, not because you uprooted the ground, then we say that's not the malacha of chayrish. So this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda says davar she'eino miskaven, if the malacha is unintended, it's forbidden. You can't do it. It's just that in this case, it's not the malacha. It's not the forbidden act of chayrish, of plowing, because plowing, according to this opinion, means that you're uprooting the dirt from the ground. And here, by the wagon, you don't do that. And therefore, even if it does it, it's not going to be a problem because it's not the malacha of chayrish. So either way, both this Mishnah, whether you say it's okay to drag the wagon on the ground, it's not okay, both of them essentially hold davar she'eino miskaven, doing a malacha that comes out unintended. If that's what's going to happen, or that's what could happen, it's forbidden to do. It's forbidden to do it. If it does happen, then you've transgressed. It's just that, and that's not the halach actually. The halach is like Reb Shimon, the davar she'eino miskaven, that an unintended performance of malacha is not forbidden on Shabbos unless it's a psik reisha, unless it's inevitable. If it's not inevitable, it's permissible. So therefore, really, this Mishnah is not following the halacha. But at the end of the day, the Mishnah is following the opinion that an unintended performance of a prohibited act of Shabbos, if it's performed, it's considered desecrating Shabbos. The question of the Mishnah is regarding this wagon, whether the wagon is considered doing the malacha that we're talking about. The malacha we're talking about is chayrish, plowing, when you dig up the ground. And is that malacha, is that considered doing that malacha, doing that forbidden act on Shabbos, only when you uproot the dirt from the ground, or even when you press the ground down and it forms a groove? That's the question of our Mishnah. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Interesting how Torah is considered